Hi, my name is Deepak Malhotra and I'm a professor at Harvard Business School, and my area of work is negotiations. This is part of a series of videos that I'm putting together where in about 2 to 3 minutes each, I offer one insight, one principle, a tactic, and discuss it, something that you can start using immediately in your work and in your career and in your everyday life. In this particular video clip, what I want to discuss is negotiating with people that seem irrational. Very often people will ask me, how do you deal with someone, how do you negotiate with someone who's completely irrational, who's just doing crazy things? Now, what I often tell folks is that what looks like irrationality in negotiations is usually something a little bit different. What you think is irrational is probably one of three things. Now, before I get to what those three things might be and how to deal with the situation, let's first make sure we're talking about the same definition of rationality. In my view, someone is irrational if they will knowingly do something that is actually the opposite of what would be in their self-interest. So when somebody knowingly does something that would make them worse off, that seems irrational. And in my experience, rarely do you come across someone who's actually irrational. Rather, what looks like rationality is usually one of three other things. First, they're not irrational. They might just be ignorant. In other words, what looks like irrationality, what looks like somebody's doing something that is the opposite of what would be in their self-interest, is actually driven by misunderstanding, miscommunication, or ignorance on their part. So you make an offer that is the best offer they're ever going to receive from anybody, and they still walk away killing the deal. It seems irrational, but maybe what explains it is that they don't fully believe that this is the best offer they're going to receive, or you haven't educated them enough about how good the offer is, or they're not educated enough about what outcomes might exist outside. So what looks like irrationality in this case is actually ignorance. The second possibility is that what looks like irrationality is actually that they have interests that you don't fully appreciate. They have other interests other than what you think they should be caring about in this situation. So if somebody walks away from a deal with you and then actually does another deal with someone else that pays them or rewards them even less than what you were willing to offer, it seems pretty irrational. But maybe they care about things other than just money. Maybe they care about self-respect. Maybe they care about pride. Maybe they care about self-identity. Maybe they care about how they're treated. Now, there's nothing irrational about valuing these other things in addition to valuing dollars and cents. You can put whatever you want in your utility function. So what might look like irrationality from your perspective might actually be the other person trying to achieve a broader set of interests. Third possibility, what looks like irrationality is actually the fact that they have constraints that you don't fully recognize. They're walking away from the table, they're saying no to a deal that you think they should say yes to, or they're rejecting your request for something that you think is perfectly reasonable. It seems irrational, but maybe their hands are tied in ways that you don't fully appreciate, understand, or recognize. Maybe saying yes to you creates a precedent that they can't live with. Maybe they have a boss or other constraints that are keeping them from saying yes or doing the thing that you think would so clearly be in their best interest. So when you step back and you think about the behavior people are engaging in negotiation, and you set aside for a moment the idea that people are just irrational, and you ask yourself the question, what might actually explain this person's behavior? Why might a reasonably rational, reasonably competent person still behave in a way that looks crazy to me? You often end up thinking about these three things. Is there an understanding gap? Are there things that they're not educated about? Are there things that they're ignorant about? That might be a solvable problem. Are there interests that they're pursuing that I'm not fully recognizing? And maybe recognizing those gives me more leverage. Are there constraints that I'm not fully respecting? Are there things that make their hands tied that if I fully understood would allow me to navigate the negotiation slightly differently while still achieving my ends and respecting their constraints? So what I often recommend to people is before you write people off as irrational, instead try to understand what drives their behavior. Give them the benefit of the doubt, and you're actually going to be giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and providing yourself more leverage in the negotiation. If you're more interested in the topic of negotiation and you want to read something, here are two somewhat biased recommendations. This is a book I wrote with Max Bazerman. It's called Negotiation Genius. And there's another book that I wrote more recently called Negotiating the Impossible. Good luck on your negotiation journeys.